So good afternoon, Mr. Puri, and welcome to the 23rd CIO&Leader conference. It's been wonderful to have you here, and we'll be talking today about how ITC is undertaking its digital transformation journey. So the first question that I would like to ask you is, ITC is aspiring to become a future tech enterprise. So what are the business and economic drivers that are catalyzing this change in your organization?
Okay. So first of all, thank you for having me over to share some of my perspectives. Now, to my mind, digital and sustainability are going to be mega trends of the decade. And besides digital and sustainability, the pace of change in technology, not merely digital, right, and the geopolitical dynamic. So all this is going to drive change at a much faster pace. You see, if you just step back for the last couple of years when the pandemic was there, while the pandemic was unfortunate, but the world did witness change at an unprecedented pace. Whether it was digital, where change happened in weeks, what would have taken maybe years or decades. And even we saw the power of technology as visible from the vaccination program. And of course, the geopolitical realities are there that's profoundly impacting the world. So in a situation where change is going to accelerate, now enterprises need to become more agile. And agility has to be in the context of your customers. Therefore, even more important to become more customer-centric. So agility and customer centricity for enterprises become extremely important. And I think in this world, you need to deploy the best set of tools that can help you to do this. And digital, no doubt, is one important area. Technology in other facets, of course, is important also, whether it's from innovation or product standpoint, because innovation is also going to be important for dealing with change. But the pivot of all this is going to be really the power of digital technologies. You will be able to connect with your customers better. You will get insights faster that will help you to respond to them faster. It also helps you to connect and take feedback faster. And so it becomes even more important. Now, besides the customer side of it, there's a lot of power that digital brings in improving processes at the back end and increasing efficiencies. Digital also has the opportunity of opening new customer segments because there is a whole generation of consumers that is consuming information, buying, shopping on the digital platforms itself. So there is another new segment also available. So these are some of the reasons why it becomes important. And if you also look at it from the Indian context, I think we were fortunate that Prime Minister also had emphasized this through Digital India, and then the manner in which payments have scaled up in India, the number of internet users, number of 6 lakhs villages being connected to fiber optic by 2025. All this is only going to multiply the consumption of digital, and more people will be consuming digital for various activities, including commerce, including spending time on the medium and therefore the means of getting influenced and so on and so forth. So it's going to become even more important. So really, these are the drivers why it's important for enterprises to embrace digital. And I could also add also that from a national context, what is important is that digital should be a means to also to empower people who are the most vulnerable. It should not. We as a society have to make sure that it does not become a cause of a digital device. That's very important because social inequity is already a big problem that we have to deal with. And I always believe that businesses thrive in societies that thrive. And if societies are under stress, business is also going to be stressed. So as enterprises, we have to also keep that dimension in mind.
Thank you, Mr. Puri. I think those were some wonderful observations that you have made about why digital has become the pivot for a lot of businesses and they need to embrace it. Would you shed some light on one or two key peculiarities of the Indian environment when it comes to digital? I mean, how are we different from, let's say, other economies? Do you see any difference?
Well, I think I don't see the fundamentals being different. I think what is of course very encouraging in India is the manner in which digital payments have been adopted, the manner in which digital is actually being consumed by people in rural India, the time people are spending on the digital medium. And let me give you an example, especially of the experience with rural India. You know, when the first lockdown happened, and we are working with 27 of the aspirational districts to empower farmers there. And a lot of the training was physical on-site. Now with the lockdown, physical movement was not possible, so overnight we pivoted to digital training through 5,000 WhatsApp groups and a number of apps that were made. And this was not for a small set of farmers, it was for about 300,000 farmers across 5,000 villages. And we pivoted. We were a little uncertain on the impact, but we were pleasantly surprised that the absorption was as good. And at the end of Kharif crop, when we did the baseline to see how much progress has been made, we were right on target. So really to say that in India, it has seeped right into Bharat, and particularly the younger generation in Bharat is very, very comfortable with the digital technology. So India is really ready to absorb it.
Thank you for that insight. I think it's very, very interesting that what you explain, how the behavior has changed even in the most, you could say, remote parts of the country. If you could talk a little bit about ITC's digital strategy, which is, I think, focused on changing the customer experience, transforming business models, making your operations smarter, and to improve the employee experience. Can you explain to us how these will help the company, compete more effectively in the business landscape?
Sure. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Our strategy envisages digital being a pivot across operations, marketing, commerce, employee experience. All of it is going to be redefined or reimagined with the power of digital. So let me start with the front end, which is the consumer side of it. So we have what we call the marketing command center is called the Sixth Sense. So that's a hub of being connected with the consumer. It is a source of instantaneous insights as you read what consumers are saying, and these insights help you trigger actions for portfolio interventions much faster than conventional means do. For example, in the lockdown, as the lockdown progressed, first, of course, people wanted sanitizers and hand washes. The second thing was, how do I disinfect surfaces? And the third thing they wanted in winters, there was a belief at that time that clothes also had to be disinfected. In certain cases, still valid, but so people wanted something to disinfect clothes. So all this information came to us through the Sixth Sense, and within weeks, Savlon came out with a Savlon disinfectant. Then towards winter, we came out with a Savlon disinfectant spray. So it's help you insight faster. It also helps you get feedback faster on things that are happening in the market. Then it's also a means of engagement with consumers. There's a whole younger generation that is more on the digital medium than on the conventional mediums. So how do you engage them? How do you kind of provide the kind of information they require? So that's on the consumer side. Commerce is continuing to grow. During the pandemic, it has only accelerated in the last 2 years. Our own experience is a 3x multiplication of what we sell through digital mediums. So you need to play in that medium. from a commerce perspective, and you need to develop your skills and expertise and set up the ecosystem to be able to do it. So there are third-party platforms. We have our own ITC e-store. As far as operations is concerned, for us it starts right from sourcing. So even if I look at how I procure wheat for Ashirwad Atta, that is modeled on a specific platform called Astra. These are all algorithmic driven decisions. And then when you come into your own manufacturing setup, whether it's utilities, whether it's processes, everything is modeled with data and Industry 4.0. I mean, a great example is in our paperboard business. By introducing Industry 4.0, we are actually able to improve margins by 230 basis points. And I'm giving this example because that's the most manufacturing intense area. Then similarly in the supply chain. So how do I optimize my logistics so that I have the lowest cost of delivery? Then how do I improve my last mile execution? We have thousands of people through our partners who go outlet to outlet to sell. Right. So how do I enhance last mile execution? So we have a program called PACE for that. Again, all driven by algos and after analysis of various external and internal data. And the other area that is emerging, that's emerging for us is that, this platform also offers the opportunity of what the world has so far been calling for a long time of mass customization. So I have on our ITC e-store, I have something called Meri Chakki Atta. So the consumer can actually go there and choose the mix he wants. And in a personalized packaging, it will be delivered to him in about 48 hours. This is being piloted right now in parts of Delhi. Our stationery business has got classmateshop.com, where you can go and personalize the covers of the notebooks that you want, right? Then we have things like Engage Fragrance Finder. So based on your own requirements and your traits, you feed in some data, it'll actually tell you what kind of fragrances. So here's a personalization of the options that are available to consumers. So that's a whole emerging area that's coming, but these are just some quick examples. It's actually right through our operations. And every area, it's important that you keep in mind that it's connected with your business objective. It's such a large activity and so many opportunities that you're not just doing activities for the sake of activities.
I think very important point that you made there, that it has to fit into the strategy and it's not just some activities you're doing for the sake of doing them. I think thank you for that very important lesson. The next question I want to ask you is, you are adopting a number of new processes and technologies within the organization. This necessitates change both amongst employees as well as your ecosystem partners. They have to change their work practices, their cultures, their attitudes. So how are you managing this transition? What are the challenges over there?
So I think, first of all, as an organization, we need to be very clear what is the goal and how it fits into our strategy, how it's going to enhance competitive advantage, because that is going to be the fulcrum of communicating to all stakeholders, including employees. People must connect to that. Second is to empower them. Empower them with the skills, the training, the infrastructure. Be clear that this will require a lot of experimentation. And in this medium, it's also possible to test out ideas small. So think big, start small, scale up fast. That's the kind of mantra you have to use. And the third is actually to have very clear goals and a measurable metrics. So you pursue it and people stay connected and see value in these metrics. So this is the starting point. As far as empowerment is concerned, I think it's very important particularly to empower the younger generation of employees. They are far more comfortable with digital than people like me. And they are the ones who will be able to create more value out of this because they are in a way digital natives. So you need to create an environment where they feel empowered. And that is by setting in place an infrastructure, like we've got the Sixth Sense, we've got Center of Excellence on Data, we've got Industry 4.0 Center of Excellence. So all the resources are available, then people can experiment and cross-fertilize ideas. And the next thing also is to create adequate forums where this is discussed and debated. So there is a ongoing ideation in the enterprise. So we have competitions like Reimagine Next. We have something called a DigiNext Council, which is of senior leaders. Then we have a Young Digital Innovators Forum, which is about 20 people mentored by a global thought leader, and so on and so forth. So idea is also to create forums where this topic is continuously debated and there is ideation.
So Mr. Puri, the question to you is that often with ideation, you are also, as you mentioned, start small, think big. But is there also, how do you overcome this fear of failure, in an organization? Sometimes people hesitate to do this because they're afraid to fail. So
that's always a problem, whether it's doing it with or without digital. That always is there. So that's around the culture and the manner in which you deal with such issues. Of course, you have to hold people accountable, but you're not going to kind of crucify them just for a failure. It's more important as leaders to see that they're learning something out of the failure, right? So it's more around the culture and the environment that is created. And ITC as a company has been what we call, we're trying to build professional entrepreneurs. So preneurs is what we call them. And many have actually started categories from scratch, built it up from scratch and scaled it up. And this process itself will have its set of ups and downs. So culturally, I think we are kind of well placed to deal with this. Yes, it's not that we are perfect. Still, there will be some hesitations, like the manner in which you put it, but that's something that you have to continuously nurture and make people comfortable, whilst holding people accountable at the same time, letting people realize that you're not going to be, crucified for a failure. Always a broader picture will be taken, and what we are really looking at is what is it that you are learning from failures and how are you going to do it better in future.
Thank you, at least for that very interesting thought about intrapreneurs that you are building within the organization to remove this hesitancy of trying out new things. A related topic to all this digitization and connectivity is, and related to that is data gathering, is the higher risk of having security incidents because you are gathering so much data. So what are your concerns about cybersecurity at this point?
I'm paranoid about cybersecurity, right? And that's how I behave as far as cybersecurity is concerned. So I'm quite finicky about it, and therefore this translates into a high level of demand. It's ultimately a specialist function. So that translates into a high level of demand and high level of focus on this area. And so we do whatever is required to, there's a specialized team, so whatever resources are required, whatever infrastructure is to be put in place, we don't compromise on that. And there are also pieces of continuing education with employees, which the IT teams kind of do. But this is something that we don't compromise on, and we are very, very careful. And from a time when it was more connected with your emails and your ERPs, etc., today it's equally at risk. Even with shop floor devices, everything is connected. So, you need to be paranoid about it, and you need to take get the experts and do what the experts say.
Thank you. I think living in a state of paranoia is probably very valuable. ITC has a strong focus on environment and sustainability. So how are digital technologies helping you, measure and manage ESG goals?
So, as I alluded to earlier, digital is integral to our strategy across all the facets, right? And similarly, as far as ITC is concerned, we have always said that we have to simultaneously create economic, social, and environmental capital. And for us, This has been brought right to the center of our corporate strategy. We don't talk merely about shareholder value. Our corporate objective is stakeholder value. So this is embedded right into our strategy. It's the core of the strategy. And digital is also core to the strategy. So it all works seamlessly. If I was to exemplify, I'm leaving aside all the simpler things like the hygiene issues of reporting and all. But if you look at it, it's all about back end if you talk about optimization, right? So how do I optimize distance of travel from procurement? For example, when I do Astra, that is one of the facets, that's reduce emissions. How do I optimize my manufacturing processes? It's to do with, again, it reduces my emissions. Monitoring of, at the agriculture or the social forestry end through IoT, etc. These again optimize resources, right? So it's integral to our strategy, and it's part and parcel of it. Whether it's around optimization, it is analyzing and dissecting the data. It's the same tools that you use for business strategy that come in handy for ESG. It's no different.
Thank you. So, since now you are using digital technology so pervasively within your organization, so how do you measure business impact or effectiveness of all this technology that you are putting into place? I mean, what metrics you as a CEO look at?
So there are, you see, firstly, the metrics have to be related to your goal and objectives. At a high level, it's always going to be about the top line and the cost takeout and therefore the bottom line. But then there are a lot of intermediate or lag matrices, which will depend on the projects that you are pursuing, whether it's to do with consumer engagement, whether it's to do with some sales growth, whether it's to do with some efficiencies in transportation, whether it's to do with reducing process wastage in a manufacturing setup, whether it's to do with efficiency in procurement. It could be freight related, it could be price related, etc., etc. So based on the objective for which it is being deployed, the matrices come in. There are of course a set of kind of standard matrices that exist that every company monitors, whether it's on consumer, on the consumer side, on click-throughs and customer acquisition and cost of customer acquisition. A whole bunch of them are there. But then the idea is to pick out what is relevant for that particular initiative and monitor that.
So if I were to ask you, as a CEO dashboard, so what do you focus on? I mean, in terms of course, you said there's the top line, the bottom line, and some of the costs that you are looking at, and perhaps some ESG goals. But are there any other things that you are increasingly focusing on, which you would like to pay more attention to?
Certainly, besides all of this, we also look at indicators that, in a way, could be a little lag indicators. So you look at the performance of specific projects, specific initiatives. It's not unique to digital. It's across, all facets of the enterprise. But similarly, in digital, you track what these initiatives are doing to your system. So you do track them also.
So you had mentioned about a lot of technologies that you are using at ITC, including you mentioned IoT and many other digital technologies that you're using. What are the new technologies that you are excited about, and what potential do you think they have for you?
So, this is a question that I look forward to the younger generation to answer, because they're the one to tell us what's going to work and what will not work. But out of what I see today, the most important piece is data. Some people also say data is the new oil. Data is the most important piece. How you can slice, dissect, garner insights of it, sharp target, that is very critical. So AI, ML, and now reinforcement learning, and with computing power improving, you will get more sophisticated methods of dealing with data. So that's one piece that's extremely important. The other piece that's important is around connectedness, because we are now trying to interpret data through a connected system, whether it's your supply chain ecosystem, whether These are components of manufacturing within your shop floor of a process. How do you collect data from all the facets, slice and dissect, garner the insights, and create your golden batch or whatever you're looking to do. So the technologies for connectedness are important. The third is also an experience, whether it's customer experience, whether it is employee experience. So what technologies are going to add value to it? Today we talk about AR, VR, and then metaverse is supposed to be going to be exciting. So these are the pieces, and 5G of course is a big hopefully is going to be a big enabler, because some of these technologies also require the right kind of bandwidth. So I hope 5G will play a role there.
So is ITC also planning to use drones and similar technologies in some of its operations?
We're already using them. And I would say right now it's probably simpler use cases, but as this whole process gets sophisticated, I think there is more potential to certainly use it. And I see a lot of potential, particularly in agriculture.
Yes, thank you. And how about delivery?
Well, we are not directly in the business of delivery per se. We are a brand owner and a manufacturer. So we are not a retailer, right? So to that extent, it's not core to what we do. I mean, for example, we have an e-store, right? We have an e-store, and if there's an ecosystem that evolves, that is able to work. But there are restrictions today, it's not allowed. There are restrictions today. I'm saying in future, if and when it becomes viable and feasible, yeah, we'll adopt it. But it's not core to our competitive advantage, so it's not something that I will be developing.
Right. Since ITC operates across so many different business areas and verticals, how are you ensuring that all these digitization efforts are harmonized? That you are sharing the best practices and you are avoiding silos. So how are you doing that?
Yeah. So first of all, we must recognize that the businesses of ITC are very diverse. The requirements of each business are fairly unique, though there are some common areas, common threads are there. For example, employee experience is a common thread, but that's a central initiative. It need not be by each business. But the application of digital technologies on what is required for the customer or consumer in a paper business or agri business is very different from FMCG or in a hotel's business. Right? Hotel has got a full stack app for consumer engagement. That is not something that an agri business needs. So it's on one hand, it's very different. There are some areas where there is synergy, for example, on manufacturing side. So whether it's manufacturing on paper, manufacturing in, say the FMCG businesses, there is some synergy of Industry 4.0. So we have specific forums where people share and people engage. Yes, there is always room to do, it's never perfect, there's always room to do more. So that's one level of sharing. Second, as a strategy of organization, you see, one role that the corporate management committee plays is that of making sure the benefits of synergy in the enterprise are realized, because corporate management committee has occasion to interact and understand strategies of each of the businesses. So we also help them integrate and make sure that, and that's not unique to digital, for other things also, that synergy is there. And synergy per se is an important pillar of our growth strategy in any case. So the corporate management committee uses it. And specific areas where we see common threads, we create institutional mechanisms. And we also have larger ideation forums like, DigiNext, which has all the leadership teams, so people share what they are doing, and that kind of seeds some ideas into other businesses.
Thank you. I think that's very valuable, the insight that you have given about how to ensure synergy within various divisions of the organization. So my closing question I want to ask you, so what advice do you have for other CEOs and digital leaders who are pursuing transformation efforts in their organization? How should they set and communicate expectations?
So I think I more or less alluded to it, but let me just recap. I think first and foremost, very important to understand what we wish to achieve and how it's going to enhance the competitiveness of the enterprise. And in that context, everybody has to be engaged, because ultimately everybody has KPIs and is working to make the enterprise do well, right? So there has to be integration of that. That's very important, and how it integrates therefore with the strategy. Second is you need to create, you need to train a lot, you need to empower people, focus a lot on the younger generation, because they're the one naturally who adopt it and take the lead. Don't try and maybe engage with them in digital the manner in which we engage with them on others. In other areas we may have wisdom. In this area we may not have enough wisdom. So empower them, let them become the change agents, create the infrastructure. And then it's a process of, it's a journey. So we have to create forums for engagements, you have to create forums for review, you have to track matrices, and make sure that all of this is ultimately aligned to the goals or the vision of the enterprise. If it is not, some point of time it may lose steam, or we may end up doing a lot of activities and not really creating economic value.
Thank you, Mr. Puri. That was a wonderful summary of the discussion that we've had, and I think those insights will be really valuable for all the delegates who are attending our conference. Thank you so much for your time and for your interest in doing this interaction. It has been really great talking to you and to hear from you about your experiences on what you have done at ITC. We wish you more luck, and we look forward to seeing more success stories coming out of ITC. Thank you
So much, and thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.